Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to today's virtual open iftar and thank you so much for joining us today on Zoom, Facebook and YouTube. My name is Farah and I'm going to be your host this evening together with Adnan. And Adnan, would you like to give the audience away for those who don't know who Adnan is by now?
Welcome everyone. I hope you can hear me. Hope you can see me as well. I'm sat down today.
But Adnan's taking it easy today after yesterday's cook along. So we have got an exciting event planned for you this evening with Shamil and Naved from Dishoom. But before we get started, I want to thank our media partner for this year, Islam Channel, and give a special welcome to those joining us today from Islam Channel's Facebook and YouTube. It's an absolute pleasure to have you with us today. I also want to thank the Arts Council UK, who's helped us allowed to continue our work this Ramadan, all of which is available on our website. And this also includes our virtual open iftars every night of Ramadan, our Ramadan Lates course, which goes on for the first 18 days of Ramadan, and our My Open Iftar pack for 2021. Now, this year's packs not only help you to bring the Ramadan spirit into your home, but in collaboration with Islamic Relief, our charity partner, with each pack you purchase, you'll be feeding a person in need for the whole month. And you can check out the incredible work that Islamic Relief does at iruk.co/RTP. We're also going to pop the link in the chat box as well on Zoom. Now, our virtual open iftars are interactive. We love to get everyone involved. And please hop on the Zoom meeting. And for those who are comfortable, we'd love to see you. Turn on your cameras so we can, see the smiley faces in real life. And also, we'd love to hear from you and interact with you, as we said. So there's a more section on your mobile phone, which has a reactions option. So you can show us how you're feeling in real time. And if you want to ask a question, there's also a raise hand option as well. And if you want to just comment or just let us know how your day's going, how your fast is going, just raise your hand and somebody from our back end will unmute you. So Adnan is going to run through the agenda for today. Over to you, Adnan.
Thank you, Farah. Assalamu alaikum everyone as well. Again, it's great to be back, great to be here again, and welcome again to all of our new guests, I suppose, Islamic Channel, YouTube and Facebook. So the agenda for today, to keep it light and simple, so we're going to have about 10 to 15 minutes, about 10 minutes actually, before we get into the main speakers at 7:15. Main speakers will have about 20 minutes. We'll talk about food and togetherness as the topic. We'll then start a question and answers. So as always, there's a group chat function at the bottom. Message your questions, get involved, put your cameras on. You can also raise your hands and ask the questions directly as well. After that, we'll sort of look to conclude around sort of 8:05, just a bit before that, maybe for some reflection period for the azan at 8:08. So that's the agenda for today. And well, like I said, it's good to be back. And the topic today is going to be food and togetherness, one of the best topics there can be, right? We love food on this show, and I suppose everyone else does as well. So I'm actually quite keen to find out, well, who do we have online today? And what does food mean for you? I want to know, what do people, what's your go-to food? Where do you cook? What does it remind you of? And what does togetherness really mean as well? Let's talk about that a little bit. Farah, I want to look at you first, just because, well, you're on my screen. So what does it mean for you, Farah? What do you normally eat? What's your go-to food? What makes you feel like home?
Do you know what? I guess for me, it's less about the food and more about the togetherness, because if you're food always tastes good, and if food is made with love, it just tastes even better. As for go-to foods, I've been brought up on such a diverse palette, so it really depends. In Ramadan, it changes. So my mum makes these little kebab things with mashed potato and mince and boiled egg coated in breadcrumbs. So for me, my Ramadan is not complete unless, we have a potato kebabs. We call them potato chops. So Ramadan is not complete until we have those. So I was very happy I got mine yesterday as well. What about you, Edna?
That sounds pretty good. I might have to get an invite for that one day. That sounds pretty decent. So yesterday, obviously after the potatoes, so my granddad peeled like maybe a kilogram of them, right? so many left over that he actually made potato patties. He's making them now. He messaged me. He was like, "Oh, when are you coming over today? Like, what time are you gonna come so we can make them and stuff?" And I was like, "Oh, I've got to do the talk today." But that is in essence what I love about the food. It's my granddad's food specifically. A couple of months ago, I was in Egypt. I was there for about 2-3 months, and the food was great, but it just doesn't hit home. And the thing that I was really missing was that vibe of sitting down with your family, but also my granddad's mincemeat, keema and aloo. It's banging, honestly, so good. I can't get away with that. So I'm not gonna go for the standard biryani or the chicken, that sort of stuff. It's granddad's food. It's great. He's the chef in the house.
You know, Adnan, your Nani's going to be really disappointed to hear you say that if she's watching today.
She's not here.
Yeah, for those who know, Adnan's Nani joined us on the cook along got last week. Last Jerry.
Yeah.
What was your Nani made that you really like? So, you know, granddad, you know.
Nani's, so I remember I used to live in Pakistan when I was younger, and she used to come home after work. And instead of my mum making the food sometimes, my nanny used to actually push her across, like, don't come in my space next time, let me make the parathas. And so she used to make aloo parathas just from scratch. And I just remember like the whole essence of everything, the way she did it, how much like butter she used to put onto it, just cover it all of that just reminds me of just being a kid. So I think that would be her specialty. That's the one that sits well in my mind for sure.
Now you said aloo parathas. I really want aloo paratha.
It's potatoes. Everyone loves potatoes.
I think here we love potatoes. What about you, Rehan? Rehan, you said we've got like some biryani love going on here. Rehan, what's your favorite biryani? So we had a chat about this earlier, but we still don't know.
My favorite biryani actually is, so I'm gonna probably upset the guys guest audition here, but there's a place called Gadri's, which is one of well, it's not local, kind of local, but basically they make it the biryani, the real style of our communities, like the Konkani style, which is like, Konkanis is like a very West India community. Like I've only known about it more like over the last few years, but they make like the best biryani, and it was like yeah, and we've only have had it a few times, but that's definitely like the best biryani. When you go to their restaurant, you serve it, they proper serve it in the proper traditional style, like the clay pots Indian style, and then you take it out and just, I don't know what they do to it, but just like really good.
You managed to get a thumbs up.
Yeah, Shamal's giving you. Shamal likes Qadris as well. Biryani is nice. I don't know. For me, I think it's always. It sounds pretty cheesy actually, but it's my mum's biryani. My mum does make a really good biryani, I have to say. Nobody beats my mum's biryani. Yeah, talking about today, Adnan, I wanted aloo parathas. Now I want biryani. But is it going to be chicken or lamb for you?
It's chicken.
I
So is
like
chicken.
chicken.
So is chicken.
It's always got to be chicken. What about you, Shamil? Because you said you like biryani. Is it going to be chicken or lamb or something else or vegetarian?
Having fasted today, which is not usual for me, because I know everyone here fasts for the whole month. I'm fasting for the day. I would take anything, but at this point. But I think chicken. I was just thinking that lamb is sort of feels more authentic and biryani-like, but chicken is really good in the biryani. So I would choose chicken.
I wonder if Chef agrees with you as well. If Naved agrees with you on that one. Let's ask Naved. Here you go. Oh no!
Wait, just gonna unmute you.
Here you go.
Shalma, that was disappointing. There's nothing called chicken biryani, by the way.
Yeah, I know, but
biryani is always lamb. Like
I know.
Mutton.
I'm just following Adnan's cue, but
just follow the
biryani. It's really good.
You also was honest though. I like it. And for me, I think biryani is mutton. It has to be a really good, flavorful mutton biryani. That's what we eat at home.
See, I always think mutton as being really good in palau. Those, I don't know, how would you translate palau for those people? Because different people think of palau as a different way. So how would you describe it, Naved, as you're the chef?
Well, that's like a cookery lesson now. And you started with a wrong note, like talking about food when everyone is been fasting for 14 hours. I think it's going to be bad. But anyway, let's talk about palau and biryani. So palau, I don't want to go into the technical difference, but Pulao basically is when the meat and the rice is cooked together. And biryani is normally is when you have the meat marinated in spices and you layer it with rice and you cook them together and dum. So that's the technical difference. But to be honest with you, I think there's so many versions of this dish that, I mean, you've said your mom's biryani, and Adnan said he loves Qataris. I mean, oh, sorry, Rayan said he's Qatari. So everyone has their favorite biryanis. I mean, I can say Shum makes the best biryani.
Dishoom does make a good biryani.
Yeah, I think our biryani is good.
Yummy.
I mean, I'm maybe bragging a little bit, but I think people like it generally.
Oh,
Excellent. Well,
fantastic.
I think this leads really nicely, doesn't it? Leads in really,
Yeah.
really nicely to our guest speakers, as you've already seen. So we've got the co-founders of one of UK's most successful Indian restaurants, Dishoom, Shamil over here. We've also got the head chef with us as well, Naved. Great to see you guys again. I think we were here last year, almost a year ago, and we're back again. And so the topic today again is going to be about food and togetherness and what that really means for you as well. I know there's a lot more things to talk about as well. So you've got about 20 minutes or so, but I think it's pretty flexible. I'm pretty excited for this one.
Wonderful. Well, it's lovely to be here, and what an honor, and thank you for asking us to speak. And Ramadan Kareem to everyone. And I'm fasting today, which is interesting because I'm not Muslim and I don't normally fast. I don't fast for Ramadan, so I'm joining you today. This is my one day. I might do it tomorrow as well, but this is my one day of fasting. And the tradition, the reason that I fast is because I observe Ramadan for one day, and Chef observes Janmashtami for one day as well when it comes up later in the year in August. And it's always been, I think for a long time, it's been our tradition to do that, to celebrate each other. And we have a deep philosophy of celebrating each other's differences, if you like, and partaking in each other's culture. And it is sad as well that we're not all together in person, but when we're in person, we have a big iftar in our office, in all the restaurants, and everyone gets together and we all take, we break fast together for whoever's fasting, and we have dates and so forth. And we have a big Diwali celebration. We do a big Janmashtami where my mum comes along, and we have the food of that we used to eat when I was a child, my father's favorite food. And it's not at midnight, the tradition is midnight, but we all partake, and she does a little talk on Janmashtami. I think it's incredibly important to do that today. And as a world, I think it is, I don't know, but I think it is growing more fractious. You know, I hate to say that because the world has been ugly in history, and I love reading about history, but it does seem to grow a bit more fractious. And I think it's more important than ever to be sharing each other's culture, to share our own culture, to be there and to be including people in our own traditions. And I'm very honored to be included in this tradition as well, and to be able to partake. And I think it's sort of, we sort of have a strong view. Every year we do a big Eid festival, we do a big iftar in King's Cross. And what really delights me is that whether it's at the iftar in King's Cross or whether it's at the Eid festival in Shoreditch and Dinarama, we did it a couple of years ago when we were allowed to. And we had, that time I remember we had lots of Islamic spoken word artists, we had some music, we had, I think we had some Qawwali as well. I mean, really beautiful. We had Qawwali that, I think we snuck Qawwali into Diwali as well, which I quite like, the rhyme. And I was going to get into trouble with some Hindus, I'm sure, for having Qawwali at Diwali, but it was really cool either way. We had Qawwali, I think, at both because I love Qawwali. But I think it's really important. And what something I love about that is that I think certainly at that Dinarama Shoreditch celebration, there were, maybe 1,000 people, and at least half of them weren't Muslim. And it was just cool that we were all together celebrating this thing. And I feel like if London's a pretty cosmopolitan place, and I think if we can be more like that around the world, then I think things can change. We can have greater understanding. I think we can really move the way people feel about each other and about things. And I'm personally quite optimistic about our ability to do that. We really can do that if we put our minds to it. We had a plan which we've never really hatched, tried a bit, where we would get, I wanted to persuade Facebook and Google to sponsor us. And we were going to provide all the biryani, and we were going to take over Granary Square in King's Cross and do a massive iftar. Wouldn't that be amazing with like 1,000 people or 2,000 people? And I'm sure we can do that. And then Americans can come over to London during this holy month, and they would say, oh yeah, they feed you. Those London guys are crazy. If you turn up at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, they feed you biryani. And so if some idiot, in America says, oh yeah, London's this weird ghetto, they can counter with, no, they're awesome. They feed you. They have this thing where they celebrate. So I think for me, that's something I'm really missing, is being in person. But I think that I mean, breaking down barriers is obviously very important, but I think at the heart, and maybe Adnan, you were talking about this before, of maybe food or the heart of what maybe celebration and community is about is relationships. And during this coronavirus pandemic, I've been thinking a lot about relationships, as I guess many people have. And I saw a talk. I was very fortunate to see a talk by an interesting guy called Robert Waldinger, who is Dean of the Harvard Medical School. And it's like he's got a short version of the talk on TED, but there's an enormous amount of longitudinal research. In fact, the Harvard Medical School study is the longest piece of research that's been done around health and happiness. And they discovered that people all the way back to the 1920s, consistently, when they tried to understand what drove health and happiness, it was the quality of relationships. It wasn't your food, it wasn't your exercise. In the end, there was one clear answer, and it was the quality of your relationships. And in a way, I feel that food, I feel that the Ramadan or breaking a fast, iftar and Eid, obviously, it is all about relationships. It's all about coming together with family and friends and celebrating. And even I would say that at Dishoom, something we love to do is bring you all together to eat around a table. And it's deep in our DNA, since we were cave people. And we used to gather around presumably a fire for warmth and for safety. And the ones who didn't gather there used to wander off into the jungle and be eaten by saber-toothed tigers. So we're all naturally selected to have DNA, to be sociable and to eat together. And for that reason, I think that, I'm sorry, I've got a visitor. You can sit and listen if you want.
He's welcome as well.
Actually, you have to be quiet for a minute. And for that reason, I think we're all, the health and happiness thing is relationships are key for that. And the fact that we come together, the fact that we have food together, the fact that we, excuse me. That's my 7-year-old. She's disappointed that I'm not putting.
They're missing their dad.
Apologies, everyone. But I think that piece of research is incredibly insightful. And as we come together to eat, as we bring people together in Dishoom for food, I'm just glad to be able to help people to rediscover that. And as the pandemic empties, as the pandemic sort of hopefully peters out, I'm really hoping for myself personally, and I think maybe other people are too, that this is now the time to refresh and renew relationships. So sincere apologies for my distraction with my little daughter Asha. But I'm just excited about refreshing relationships. And I think at this time at Ramadan, it's a lovely thing to think about as well. Chef, I'm going to pass it to you.
Right.
Thank you. And firstly, I mean, no need to apologize there at all. I think we all like to see the family. That is togetherness right there.
Exactly.
Sorry, Chef, on to you.
And that's okay. Well, assalamu alaikum, everyone. And without getting into the debate of Ramazan versus Ramadan, I would say Ramzan Mubarak. That's how we say it in India and Pakistan. So I hope you're having good rosas so far. I think it's day 7. I always say the first week is the hardest. So I'm really excited that I'm pretty much past the week 1. So I think it's going to be better from here onwards. For me, I think food and togetherness is very interesting. Maybe I would like to start with where Shamil left. I think the study which Shamil was quoting reminds me of a really beautiful hadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which talks about Sila Rahmi. And I don't know the exact words, but the essence of that hadith, by the way, is a saying of Prophet. And the essence of this hadith is that if you do Sila Rahmi, you increase your age. And I always used to question that as to what is the connection between that. And Sila Rahmi, let me explain that, because I think some people might not know that. Sila Rahmi literally means that you do not break your ties with your relatives, however far-fetched they are. And even if they be not nice to you, you still are not allowed to break your ties with them. And if you maintain Sila Rahmi, it increases your age. And I was always confused as to what is the connection here. Like, how does your age increases if you maintain a relationship with your relatives? I think Shamil literally solved that problem just now when he said there is a study which tells you that if you live within community and you have fantastic social relationship, you'll be happier. And the happier you are, I think that obviously leads to a longer life and happier life. So that's really, really amazing that we didn't realize the value of togetherness until this disease came and shattered our lives. I think it's been a year. It's sad that we are meeting again on Zoom. I really wanted this year to be back in person, and it didn't happen. I'm really hoping, keeping my fingers crossed, next year, hopefully we're going to meet together and share some food together, because this is all about sharing the food. To me, I think another thing which I would love to mention is that Ramadan brings me back to my childhood. Like this is the time when it it takes me straight back to when I used to gate crash into the iftar parties. Like no one used to stop you. Like you could go to anyone's house and break your fast with them. And it's such a innocent time. And I think probably the time has changed, but that was time when people used to literally get together and have a meal. Like iftar, when used to have friends, families, and definitely I think that is something which I miss a lot. We were having a chat, Shamil and I, this evening and this afternoon, and one thing which I remembered was the Ramzan of 2015. Then Shamil asked me a question about zakat, and I was put in a bit of a spotlight because that was a very technical question, and I tried my best to answer that. And I think that led to a really interesting conversation that we decided to actually do a charity, which was the Meal for a Meal. In 2015 Ramadan, we said every single meal we're going to sell during this month, we're going to donate a meal in return. And that was the pact, and we started doing it. And by the end of Ramadan, I think we were probably at 100,000 meals. And Shamil said, and Diwali was, I think, 3 months away. And we said, why don't we just carry on until Diwali? Because as we always be careful that we don't want to upset anyone. So we said, why don't we include the Hindu festival as well and extend this for another 3 months? And we never realized that this just went on. And we actually achieved, I'm really proud to actually announce this year, that we recently achieved a milestone of 10 million meals. It's been a fantastic journey in the last 5.5 years. We managed to feed 10 million kids, and that's a really amazing achievement. I think we work with 2 charities, Akshay Patra in India, and we work with Magic Breakfast here in UK. And fantastic charities, both of them. Every time I go to Bombay, we take anyone who's been with us for 5 years, or anyone who gets promoted to a head chef or a general manager, gets to come with us to Bombay every year. And that's another unfortunate story that this year we couldn't go. But one of the best days we call it the Bombay Boot Camp. One of the best days of the 5-day boot camp is to go to one of these schools and go and sit with these kids, feed them with your own hands. And that's fantastic. The love and gratitude you receive is really, really out of this world. So yeah, I mean, for me, food and togetherness is about being with family. I normally divide my month in 3 different sections. I spend time with my team. I make sure I break fast with my team. And we actually started doing the iftar in Babu House, as we call it, the main office where all of us work. And then I divide one portion for my family. So I always make sure wherever I am, however late I'm working, however busy I am, I always try and spend iftar with my family and friends. And then I dedicate a part to it to mosque. So I always try and go to my local mosque and break fast, because that's where you get to sit together on the ground and you literally have the simplest meal. And that's, for me, is the essence of iftar, when everyone is equal and everyone get to break the bread together. And that brings everything for me together. So this is from me. Shobha, anything else which you would want to talk about or I missed you would like to mention?
Wait for Adnan. No, chef. It's just a joy. I think what I've loved is, I mean, our relationship now is 10 years old when we first met, maybe a little more, maybe 11 years old. 11 years old. Yes, we met this time 11 years ago. Time flies through the pandemic. And I just really love the way that we've been able to bring our own beliefs and cultural ideas and thoughts and bring them together and pull them into something that I think has been really, I mean, I love doing that. And the 10 million meals is an honor. And I'm delighted that originated during Ramadan. And then I think we made it then permanent at Diwali, if you remember. So it sort of brings in both cultures. And I just think I'm really, really proud of that. Like that sort of bringing together of differences can create something that is, I think, really, I'm really proud to be associated with.
Great. No, I think first and foremost, congratulations. It's a very, very remarkable feat to be able to feed that many people all across the world. And I think I'll come back to this afterwards as well, in terms of how it all sort of developed and how did someone, how does someone also get involved with that sort of stuff? Because a lot of people now have tried to set up their own food banks during COVID and then try to do their bit. So I think that could be quite a valuable place as well. But before we get into that, thank you very much for that talk. I think that was really good. There's so many pieces I want to talk about afterwards as well, but I'm going to pass on to Farah first.
You again for your absolutely fantastic, inspiring talk as always. It's it's so kind of you to give us an insight into all the wonderful work we've done and to share it with our audience as well. We really do value it.
Thank you, guys.
It's I'd like just so many questions have come up, but Shamil and Naved, I'm going to start off with a couple of questions first. The first one is, what's your favorite childhood food memory? We'd just love to know what you associate with childhood and home and growing up. And secondly, just a little bit about, 'cause you guys are doing such great feeding people, and a bit about, the sustainability and, how you're making the Dishoom, really sustainable, because in Ramadan's a time for us to be more conscious of, ourselves and, how we use our precious resources as well. So yeah, just really be intrigued. So over to you guys.
Chef, did you want to start with your food memory?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I great crash into many of the iftar parties, so I have many many such memories. But those pakoras which you get in the iftar parties are the best pakoras. They're cold, and they're probably fried 3 or 4 hours in advance. But you're so hungry that the best memory I have is of those pakoras. And I love my biryani, by the way. I think we've had a debate around the lamb biryani versus the chicken biryani. I think for me, there's nothing called a chicken biryani. It's a really fantastically flavorful lamb biryani, which I prefer. So that's my memory, food memory, Shamil.
Mine, I think, is puri. And in Janmashtami, we used to have puri and butter chana shak. So sort of puri is just a fried bread, if you like. It's deep fried, but it's delicious. And the potato as a sort of curry, but not wet. And it's delicious. That's what we used to have at midnight. And it was my father. I think I went back to my father, who used to have that at boarding school in Dehradun. He was at boarding school in Dehradun, so he was sent there because my upbringing was in. So my family comes from Kampala, so I was born there, but I came here when I was 6 months old. But my father was sent from Kampala all the way to Dehradun to do his school, which is amazing. I don't know how they got their heads around that, but that was his memory. So we ended up with. So I have a direct line to puri and butter chana shak from their boarding school in Dehradun, my father's. So that's I think my favorite food that I'm feeling very hungry for at the moment, with chai as well. It always goes with chai.
So before you continue, can I ask, can you tell the audience what Janmashtami is?
Sorry, yes, indeed. Janmashtami is celebrating the birth of Krishna. So the tradition there is that supposedly Krishna was born at midnight that day, and there was all sorts of, there's a long story, and I'd love to tell it about his birth and the crazy things that went on. But the celebration is that he was born at midnight, and at midnight we're allowed to eat, and everyone gets together, and we all sort of celebrate, and we do a little prayer. So that's how we celebrate Janmashtami. But it's a fast all day, and if you're hardcore, you do it all day without water. But we don't have to do it for a month, so it's not as extreme. So
I find the 1 day fast is probably harder in a way, because at least we get used to it as it goes along, right? But that was something I wanted to pick up on as well. The fact that 11 years of friendship, and it's not about it's similar culture but different religions. Yet that doesn't divide you; it brings you together, and you're able to share that together as well. I think that's exceptional. And it reminds me of Malaysia. And the reason why I say that is because in Malaysia, they have something called a mamak. And that was primarily built to unite 3 different nationalities together: the Malay, the Chinese, and the Indians. And it's very simple. It's just street food with seating outside for anyone to sit down on. Doesn't matter what age or nationality or wealth you're from. That, for me, was what defined, togetherness, food. Bring people together, enjoy meals together, and that actually leads on to a question we have from our guest. I'm just going to put her on now, because it goes into sort of how will it be affected going forward. Huda, can you hear us?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, that was a really interesting talk. So my question was just about like post-COVID and life post-COVID. Obviously, COVID's really affected how we socialize. How do you think moving forward in a world post-COVID, this will affect community spirit, and what will it affect, and how would that affect also how we communicate with each other over food?
That's a good question. That's a big question as well. How will COVID affect food and food traditions? I think that I wonder, maybe a couple of things. One is that it maybe goes back to what we value and what we treasure. And I think during the pandemic, we've all been in our houses. We haven't seen each other very much. And I think that people are going to be very happy to be seeing each other again in the flesh. And I know that I've been seeing a few people over the last week or two, now that we're allowed to, in the garden, seeing, cousins and just seeing that joy, I think will bring a different complexion to food. And I really hope food is the means by which we sort of come together. Like we could go out and people will no doubt go out and party and things, but I think there is something so lovely and so visceral about coming together over a plate of food where it nourishes both the soul and the sort of body. I think both of those are incredibly important. And I wonder, my second point is maybe it's a bit optimistic, but I'm feeling like I treasure things in different ways. There are some things that I may not want to go back to. There are some things that I do want to go back to. And I think that maybe with food and thinking about that, I wonder whether people will treasure the stuff they really treasure. It feels like life's a bit too short to waste your time and your sort of food capacity on eating food that you don't like anymore. Or I think people are going to be a bit more judicious about things, and where they go and what they do and who they see. But I think that's entirely a good thing. And I think that it will, I think result in some nice habits maybe forming. I don't know. Maybe that's too optimistic. Chef, what's your view? How is Corona going to affect things?
I think it's a really difficult question to answer, in all honesty. I think we're going to learn how to live with it. And you hear different views. I mean, if you Google about COVID and the future with it, I think you get 10 different views, and I'd get totally confused and sometimes switch off. For me, I think I'm really yearning to go out and meet friends and family again. As you said, I've met few in last 1 week when we're allowed to. I'm really looking forward to have a good summer when we can have a good barbecue and share some memories again, and have that casual chat. Long term, I hope life returns to normal, but I think the reality could be slightly different, wherein we learn to live with it, and it becomes a disease which is not hopefully fatal. People stop dying from it, and I guess this could become history in that way, wherein it's there, but you don't die with it, and eventually life does return to normal. I mean, this is my best wish, and I hope it happens.
There's actually a follow-up sort of question very similar to that, talking about how is Dishoom going forward with sort of the pandemic, and now I guess things are opening up, and I assume outdoor seatings are open out at Dishoom as well, which I might actually come and visit the King's Cross one because I actually work down the road. But yeah, how is Dishoom sort of navigating that field? Oh, let me unmute.
Well, if I'm honest, it's been pretty hard, during the last 12 months since we last met. I think that first of all, the shock of the pandemic, and then closing all the restaurants down, and then we've had to, like everybody else, we've had to borrow quite a lot of money. We've been burning cash. We've got the something else that I'm really glad that we did is we've not let anyone go. We've kept every single job in the business as well. So we're sort of super keen to start paying down the debt we've accumulated during this time and stop burning cash. We're still burning cash today. So we're very keen to open up, and we've opened up 3 of our restaurants, which are we haven't opened King's Cross, but we've opened the Soho one, Carnaby, and Shoreditch and Birmingham, and all of them are nice and busy. I think people are quite excited to come out. And then May the 17th, hopefully we'll open up everything in a socially distanced way. And then hopefully in June, they're saying that we'll lose the restrictions. I'm not sure if that's going to be the case, but certainly, our numbers are at the moment pretty good. We don't have that many cases, don't have that many deaths, God willing, and we also have good vaccinations. So I'm hoping they can stick to the roadmap. There seems to have been a sort of outbreak of competence. I hope it lasts. I don't know if it will, but and if that's the case, I think we can see a path out. But I think there's a lot of uncertainties, and I think for us, we talk about this a lot. Is that the key thing we need to make sure when people come back into Dishoom is that they remember it as even better than they left it. So when you come back, you're like, wow, does a biryani really taste that good? That's amazing. Or the service is so good and the taste of that lassi, or whatever it is. But I think we need to wow people and have them come back and not go, oh, well, it's not as good as I thought. I want them to really feel it the first time and the second time and the third time. Chef, what do you think? You think about all of that a lot.
Again, I wish we could just return back to 2019. I mean, I know that's not going to happen that easily. I think you're right, Shalva. I think the eating habits are going to have an impact on people. I think people are becoming more diet conscious. There's a report which I read that people are not buying breads these days because they've become home cooks and they become so good in baking breads at home. So I think that's stuff like that which is interesting. And I've heard so many and seen actually so many people cooking during this last 1 year. I remember getting so many questions about our own Dishoom cookbook when people used to write and text messages about a recipe that how do I make that. So I think that change is certainly going to happen wherein people are becoming more judicious as to what they eat. And I think it's going to be interesting as to if life is short, why do you want to eat stuff which you don't like? So I kind of second your opinion.
Yeah, May 17, I mean, couldn't come sooner, I suppose, as well. I mean, everyone's looking forward to it. I know it's going to be just after Eid as well, and I'm going to be turning 27 on the 17th of May. It's going to be a good month. Sorry, so next question, Farah, on to you. I think we have another question from the audience, I believe.
I was just going to say, Adnan and I, our birthdays are like on consecutive days. So, you know, we're quite looking forward to having a post Ramadan birthday this year. So I think we're quite excited.
Come to the show.
Ramadan. So we have a question from Rehan, and after that, if you're happy, you know, telling us more about your sustainability work, which I think you said, you'd like to share with us. So first of all, over to you, Rehan. And before I do so, now after talking about food, I now want like a Dishoom breakfast and a murtabak from Malaysia. So, you know, this is our international food journey going on here. There you go, Rehan.
Hi. Yeah, that sounds good as well. Why are you hungry? So I think, so you actually did touch on sort of thing. So you said people are breaking more. Has anything changed in sort of the Dishoom's menu? Is there anything that you've come up with new? Because I find that people's eating habits have definitely changed in the pandemic. So have you sort of come up with new recipes or something new on the menu to sort of adapt to that, change to that?
Yeah, I mean, there was one comment I was reading and I was dreading that comment, was the chili cheese toast comment.
Oh, it's
there. There's an internal debate. I mean, there's a lobbying going on in the issue. We actually, by the way, took the chili cheese toast off the menu. And Shamil, along with other people, is lobbying to get that back on the menu. And I don't want it because I think that this needs to be better than what it was. So, but I'm going to improve it and it's going to come back. Chili cheese toast is going to be. But to answer your question, Ryan, I think I don't want to spill the beans, but I think I've been dreaming of a really good chart menu for some time. And the chart is one thing which we love doing. And I think we do a fantastic pani puri on Holi, and we do a dahi papri chart on Diwali. And we have a fantastic shakarkandi chart on the menu right now. But I want to bring it all together, maybe just for a month. And I'm throwing the beans start too much. But I really want to do it to have a really fantastic summer menu. And we do charts. So that's something which I'm working towards. Let's see if it materializes, because we don't know how and how things are going to open and how busy we're going to get. So, but it's my wish to kind of have a really cracking chart menu for you guys this summer.
I'm pulling up a bed next to the Dishoom restaurant if that happens. I absolutely love samosa charts and all charts. That's amazing. So I think there was a question next, wasn't it? It was more about sustainability. So thank you for the answers that you've just given. I think that was really good. I'm just too hungry now. So I think let's move into sustainability. Let's think about the bigger picture about what's happening in the world now as well. And on to yourselves. Who would like to go first? Should we go with Shamil first?
I think it's Shamil, I think.
I don't think we're not brilliant on sustainability yet. We've been doing quite a lot of work over the last couple of years. So I think we've gotten some way on doing that. And so we've started, our energy is from sustainable sources. We're looking at our fish is now from sustainable sources. I think we've got one fish maybe left. I think maybe we're okay now. We've changed that as well. So we're in good shape on fish. We're looking at welfare for meat as well. But I think the bigger picture is quite shocking. I mean, I've been doing a lot of reading over the last sort of 12 to 18 months on climate emergency, I might call it. But we don't have a long time to fix it. And obviously there's a big conference coming up, a couple of big conferences, but and they've tried to revise the Paris target down to 1.5 degrees of warming. But even with 1.5, even with 2 degrees, 2.5 degrees of warming, at this moment, it looks like we will overshoot that. I'm afraid to say the science does say that our children and grandchildren will grow up in a pretty hellish planet. And it is as stark as that. And obviously what I'm seeing, and you will have seen this, is that increasingly very sane people are saying extremely crazy things. So you get people like Bill Gates, who we think of as very sane, or people like David Attenborough, I guess he's been that for a while, but people we think of as very authoritative are sounding quite crazy on the subject, and I think they're right to do so. So I think, and in fact, I think in terms of the spiraling effects, if we don't get it under control within the next 10 years, I mean, this is carbon essentially into the atmosphere, there will be sort of secondary effects which cause it to spiral, which means that really we have about 10 years to do it, and all of us need to step up and do something within the next 10 years. So to that end, we've started working with, we're just about to start working with an interesting guy called Mike Berners-Lee, who's written a very good book. I keep some of my books here. I recommend this one, which is called There Is No Planet B. The reason that I got shocked into this subject and thinking this is very important is because of this book, which is The Uninhabitable Earth, which paints a real picture, maybe too pessimistic, of what's going to happen. And we're just about to start on the approach where we will look to measure, first of all, you do three things fundamentally. You measure your carbon footprint, you then reduce it wherever you can. And I think we've done some of that, but I think we've got a long way to go. And then you look at offsetting what's remaining. Offsetting is a little bit controversial because we need it to happen anyway. So you can't just be creating carbon and then offsetting permanently. And I think our aim is to really see how we can become as low carbon as possible, but effectively carbon neutral, maybe even carbon zero. And then we'd love to knock on the doors of all the other restaurants and businesses and hotels and so forth and say, hey, we've done the to-do list, this is how you do it. And then we'd like to talk to more people about that, maybe talk to the government about that and say we need to do this. But I think that our mission, I think, will be, and we're not sort of talking about it too much yet because we've only just started the journey, is to really make a dent in the problem. And I think we all have to step up and do it. So that's the journey that we're going to do. How is that compatible with business and capitalism and profits? We're going to make it compatible somehow. And I think it's too important to ignore. We have to prioritize it. So that's I think where we're at. So maybe I'm sharing that a bit prematurely, but that's going to be our roadmap for the next. It's going to take some time, but certainly the next 3 months is going to be pretty intense.
No. I think that's spot on. Just for the audience, I want to highlight the two books. Number one was There Is No Planet B, yeah. And I think we'll put that in a group chat in a minute. There Is No Planet B, and the other one was The Uninhabitable Earth by David Wallace Wells.
This is very depressing. The other one is less depressing, but this shocked me into there is no other subject to discuss. This is what we all have to discuss.
No, definitely. I mean, there's much more precedents happening around that as well. I actually work in sustainability consulting myself, and this conversation is day in and day out, on everyone's agenda now. I mean, just to give a quick overview anyway, I mean, 2 years ago, this wouldn't have been a conversation on many people's agenda. People would have thought sustainability, yeah, okay, cool, so nice to have. But now what we've seen is 100%. Everyone wants to be net zero or work towards that. Everyone wants to measure the carbon footprints and essentially try and offset. It is the way forward. I think we all have to make our part. And I think elements of, understanding our own diet sometimes all plays a big part, understanding the types of food we eat and what impact that has on the environment, what our footprint is as well. I think just being a bit more aware about our own actions is all part of the journey. So it's good to hear, Dishoom is definitely thinking about this sort of stuff and putting action as well, as I'm sure, there's a lot of other, not just restaurants. I think, everyone's coming on board. So it's good. Okay, so that said, let's move on to the next question, which I believe is with Farah.
Thank you so much, Adnan. Shamil, really interesting. And what I really like is about you incorporating, low energy in the business model as well. So not only from the food point of view, but from an energy consumption point of view. That's a special interest of mine, climate and energy. So yeah, that's really, really good to hear. And moving on from what we said about sustainability and the wonderful work that you do at Dishoom and with Chef Naved, I'd like to ask you about using food to reduce inequality. And there's so many people hungry at the moment. What can everyone do to improve food equity and equity in the consumption of food? So I'd love to hear from Chef Naved and yourself, please, if that's okay.
Well, I mentioned this earlier, but there are the 2 points I would like to mention. for me as a chef, I think one thing which really bothers me is the food wastage in general. I mean, in our homes, but in restaurants, especially in hotels, for example. And that is something which I'm actively working towards, to make sure our food wastage is always reduced, and we always working towards getting to zero, which is impossible, but at least we have that agenda. And I think it speaks to the sustainability issue as well, wherein I think if you look at the food wastage, it is incredible. If the daily food wastage, I think, is in 10 to 15% of what we produce, we just waste and it goes into the bin. And the second point around this is the charity work, which I talked about earlier. I mean, for us, we started on a small scale. We had a conversation. We thought of doing stuff for a month, but we realized the value of it. I think I remember first time when I went to India and I went to one of these schools, and I sat with these kids and fed few of them. I didn't realize how difficult it is to get a meal. We are very fortunate. We live in West, and I think it's getting here as well. I think I never thought that getting a meal is tricky for a lot of people. And I think a lot of these kids, I was surprised to hear when I spoke to one of the teachers that they told us that some of the kids only attend school because they could get a meal. And that was such a shocking revelation for me. And I think that was the day when we thought, I think this is good work, and we actually didn't talk about the meal for a meal thing for almost a year. And I think after that event, when I came back from Mumbai, I think we had this thing that we should actually tell more people about this, that we do this, and you should also try and participate in it. I think a lot of our suppliers started doing it actually at the back of what we were doing. And I think this 10 million meals is just not a number. It's actually a number of people we've fed. And I'm not saying it from the point of bragging about it. I think it's the difference that has made to people's life and the kids' life. And some of these kids are very close to us now. I mean, they write letters, we exchange photographs, we go and meet them kind of every year. So for me, I think this project is very close to my heart. I mean, if one thing I'm incredibly proud of in Dishoom, apart from my work, I think it's the charity work which we do. And I urge everyone to look into it and see if you could be partnered in that. So yeah, that's from me. Shomba.
Thank you. Over to you, Shamil. Do you have anything to add to that?
I'm just thinking. I mean, wastage is, because it talks to the sustainability question as well. I've just been looking up that we waste. So in the world, we certainly grow enough food for everyone, and we also have an additional 1,000 calories a year. So 1,000 calories a day per person that we waste. And if you were to cut even that waste in half, we would have 20% more food. So food is not a problem. So we have enough food. It's just not in the right places. So I think we really have to address the waste issues. But I think that this guy Mike Berners-Lee, he talks a lot about food equity, and he talks a lot about the fact that as we're addressing issues of sustainability, we have to address issues of equity. One of the shocking things that I think one of the sort of saddest things that we're going to find as an issue when we're all going to get to know climate change very well. We're all going to learn about it a lot in the next 6 to 12 months. And one of the shocking things is that many of the poor countries are going to bear the brunt of it. So some of the worst places that are going to be hit are India and Bangladesh, and it's going to be ugly. Like it's going to be very hard with heat. I mean, Africa is going to be really badly hit. So climate change is going to be, in a way, this is a political point, but it's going to be felt most by the people who caused it least. So in a way, the West has caused a lot of the climate change through fossil fuel over the last sort of 50 years. And the sort of less developed countries are going to bear the brunt of it. It's going to be tough, and that's going to hit strongly food issues. So I think somehow in this conversation about climate change, we have to address both local and global food inequity. And I guess our way of doing that, well, I hadn't really connected the two, is to do a meal for a meal and to feed kids both here and in India. And, I think it's great. I'm really proud of that. But it's a drop in the ocean. There is so much more work to be done on that. But it's, I hate it to see kids starving. Is like, why? My daughter Asha was just here, and I can't even imagine a 7-year-old kid who doesn't have enough to eat so that they can't even study. You're like, what does that do? It's just all sorts of wrong at every level.
And I think the good thing about the pandemic has been drawing attention to that, and drawing attention to school meals as well, and making sure every child gets a school meal, to help them function, throughout the day. We've got lots of questions coming in. I'm going to hand over to Adnan, who has one to ask. So over to you, Adnan.
Thank you, Farah. Yeah, I mean, just to add to the whole crisis of sort of lack of food for kids. And I mean, there's huge campaigns, and you've seen it from footballers, for example, Rashford doing, his piece on on trying to combat that and essentially get government involved, which will be a question that we'll come back to in a second. But first, I want to go to Rehan.
Oh, I already have. Okay, so I was thinking, on your topic, what do you guys think of that genetically grown meat? Because I know chefs talk a lot about lamb biryani, mutton biryani, but I think one thing I've always thought about is like, I'm gonna have to cut down on my meat if I'm gonna have to help save the planet in that way. And is that the way to go?
Well, it's a tough one. Chef, do you have a view on lab-grown meat?
Yeah, I probably do. I think it's early days. I think science is making great progress, and I think we are actually all backing on science. Ultimately, they have to find great solutions for it. I'm really hopeful we will. But as we just now said, I think there's enough to go around if we just cut down the wastage. There's 20% more food we all have, and we should definitely, obviously, the meat eaters. I don't want to kind of question anyone's eating habits, but I think you don't have to eat meat every day. I think I grew up in a Muslim family, and I think meat is a thing. I think there's no meal which is complete without meal. But my mom used to emphasize that we should have enough vegetables, and I think a balanced diet obviously has all elements in it. So I think if we are judicious and we are eating and not wasting, I think we have enough to go around. But I think science is going to come to our rescue eventually. So I don't know enough about the genetically grown meat, but I think I've heard about it. I've read about it, but it's early days to comment on that.
I mean, I'm sort of very conflicted because I'm a meat eater, and I believe that like we're genetically designed to eat meat, like cave people ate meat. That's what we do. But I think that like today, with however many people are on the planet, 7 or 8 billion plus more, we've gotten to a point where the planet's not sustaining us, and the meat is really, really inefficient as a source of nutrition. So as a source of protein, we have to generate so much more, or use so much more energy, generate so much more greenhouse gases in order to create the same nutrition from wheat or soy as opposed to beef, for example. And I think that habits, for our planet to be sustainable, habits are probably going to have to change. I understand that lab-grown meat is not as efficient as today's vegetables or plant-based. I'm not sure, but I guess maybe it has a place in the world. I really don't know much about it. I think at the moment it's really, really expensive, but it may have a sort of substitute. I don't know how efficient it will be in terms of energy, because I think it takes quite a lot of energy to produce. So that sort of defeats the point. But the worst culprits, and as a Hindu I can say this, although I do eat beef, the worst culprits are beef. I mean, it's absolutely disastrous. For 50 grams of protein, you generate 25 kilograms of CO2, which is huge. And the equivalent for lamb is about 10, and then down to peas and groundnuts and soy milk is almost negligible. So somewhere something's got to give. I mean, a cow is an enormously inefficient way to give people calories, and that's part of the reason that people starve. And I think that soya gets a bad rap because of cows. All the soya that we grow that gets a bad rap because of rainforest is mostly used for cow feed. So that's an interesting thing. But I think in answer to your question, Rehan, I think we have to be open to all of this stuff and see where it takes us. I don't love the idea of lab-grown meat. I have reduced the meat in my diet a little bit. I still love meat. I suspect there's a place for it in the future, but we're not all going to be able to eat as much meat as we have done historically. And now that places like China and India are getting rich, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, there's a couple of points I want to raise there as well and just highlight. Is the first one is the carbon dioxide is released from cows. It's actually the methane that's even worse. It's 21 times worse for the global warming potential, and that's the dangerous bit. Just from sort of cows alone, and then there's everything else that comes out from everything else we overuse as well. And the question I have actually for myself anyway, you touched on we have to change our habits. We have to change our that might have gone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you back now.
Yeah.
We missed it.
Disappeared for a bit. Do you want to ask your question again, Adnan?
Yeah, sorry. So the question was, and you touched on this already, we might have to change our preferences and tastes. Have you seen that from your customers? Have you sort of heard anything from your customers asking for different type of products or demanding, something else? Yeah.
Chef, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think veganism is on the rise for good. It's been the last couple of years that trend is going up. We started actually doing specifically vegan stuff probably in 16 or 17. I think we are very fortunate being an Indian restaurant. I think there's so much of the recipes which are traditionally vegan, like a good kaddu sabzi is vegan by default. So yes, I mean that has happened, and we literally started doing it when there was no demand for it. Actually, probably there were a few people who used to come and ask for it, but we thought it's a good thing to kind of to cater to everyone who comes to Dishoom, to make sure they could enjoy as much as anyone else. And then also, I think we thought it's going to be helpful for environment eventually. But now, I mean, in 2021, I think there is a full market for it. I think don't do it for anything else, do it for the commercial reasons, and actually a lot of people are actually doing that. So I'm really happy that this has happened. I'm really happy that we are actually developing dishes which are in that direction. We have a fantastic vegan sausage which we recently launched. Do trial it. I think it's cracking.
Great, no, excellent.
Thank you.
And we've seen the likes of, like Beyond Meat, for example, coming up lately as well, and they're sort of shooting up. No, that's really good to hear actually from my side. Farah, sorry, on to you.
That's all right. I was just really interesting what you said. So, you said like a vegan sausage. I'm really intrigued to try that. I have mostly a plant-based diet. That's because I've grown up on not eating a lot of meat. My mum used to make, aloo gosh once a week. And even then, she's like, you guys don't eat the aloo gosh. In the house, we're divided into, the roti eaters who are mostly vegetarian, and then like the meat eaters who like their rice. So I go into the category of being my roti eater and being more vegetarian, although saying that I'm one of those people who's trying to increase my meat consumption from once every 3 weeks to a month to, just trying to get a little bit more meat inside me, which makes my mother very happy. So we've got 9 minutes left now to Iftar. So we've got time for Shabana's question, and Havazen's also got an awesome question as well. So let's go to you, Shabana, and then we'll try and get Havazen in as well. So we'll have really brief answers and then squeeze in Havazen.
Thanks for Assalamu everyone. Thank you both, Shamil and Chef Naved, for your time this evening and for your talk and for sharing your stories. My question was just more going back to what we're talking about, child hunger and poverty, and especially in this country. Obviously, it's awful, it's happening all over the world, but considering we're a developed country, it's crazy that there's literally millions of children in this country that are living in poverty and go to sleep hungry every night. Like I think Adnan was saying, the stuff that Marcus Rashford did last year, which was great, the campaigns. But what more can the government, do you think, can do to ensure, that children don't go without food, or that they don't go to sleep hungry every night, especially during school holidays?
I've sort of learned a bit about this subject, but I'm not brilliant on where the bill is at, because I know there's a bill going through, and we work with Magic Breakfast quite closely, and they've been sort of helping shepherd that bill. And then Marcus Rashford is now also working with Magic Breakfast as well. So I don't know where currently that bill is at, but I think if I go to the principle, which maybe is the thing that I could comment on, is I just don't think children should go hungry. I think it's society's responsibility to feed kids and to give education. I think that's a basic. I studied political theory at university, and I was really taken by a theorist called John Rawls, and he sort of said that society's job was to provide everything. Maybe I'm mixing up my theorists, maybe it was Dworkin, but he said that society's role was to provide everything that people, it wouldn't matter where you were born, that society was essentially endowment insensitive. So it doesn't matter where you start, you can get anywhere you want. And I think part of that is education, part of that is food, part of that is healthcare. I think those are all basic rights. And especially with childhood hunger, I think that it's it needs to be legislated for and taken care of. And I know Magic Breakfast are working pretty hard on that. I think Magic Breakfast also is doing quite a lot with the government to do that. So the government have funded them in the past. Now, whether they work through charities and the sort of third sector, or whether they do it directly, I think I'm less sort of worried about. But I think that Marcus Rashford has done an enormous amount of good work in bringing this issue to attention. So I think it's brilliant. But I think for me, it absolutely has to be addressed by government.
Great. I am a little bit conscious of time, so there is one more question, but I'm just going to read it out from Hawazin. And if we just keep it very, very brief, but she mentions, or she asks, do you try to work with apps to help reduce wasting food in London, like Too Good To Go, for example?
Yes, I recently met actually someone really cool. They developed something which actually measures all the food wastage going into the bin, and actually they had a camera technology which could then distinguish between the food which is good to eat and the food which is actually not fit to eat. So we're speaking to them, but without again making a big deal about it, but we actually very good at food wastage. One, actually, Dishoom is very busy, so most time we have a different problem that we always run out of food. We try and produce it all the time. And second, I think I'm really conscious of it. I think all my team is actually equally on board with this concept of not wasting. So I think we try our best to reduce it. It's really hard. I mean, the amount of customers you feed and how the commercial kitchens works. I'm not going to say that it's zero wastage. It's very tricky. It's very hard. But I think there's awareness among the team. There's a hunger and a desire to actually reduce it. And yes, to answer the question directly, we were speaking to a couple of really cool people who develop in technology to help with that.
Great. I think Farah's trying to speak with mute on.
Here we go. Sorry, I was trying to keep up with the chat box. Everyone's been eating such interesting things. We've had lentil soup and Turkish chicken wings and kebabs. So seeing what's happening there, all lovely things. So we've got about 5 minutes before we wrap up, and or 4 minutes until Adnan. And Adnan just has a few words to say. And just before we finish off, is there any final thoughts that you and Naved and Shamil would like to leave us with?
Maybe I go first, and I'll leave the last for Shamil. I think for me, today's discussion has been fantastic. I think we started with togetherness and food, and we touched upon some really sensitive issues like climate change and child hunger. And I think if one thing which we all can do quite easily is spread awareness. I think this is what Mark Ashford has done. I think he's made this issue, which is a 9 p.m. News headline, which has never been the case. So I think one thing which I can recommend is to kind of spread awareness. I think that could be really helpful if you can't do anything else. Sean, last words to you.
Yeah, I something that emerged tonight, which I'm really glad about, which maybe Adnan highlighted, that our friendship, Chef, over the last 11 years, and we have the same sort of origins. We're both South Asian sort of thing, or Indian, but coming from slightly different cultures and coming together and creating something. I'm really honored to be doing that. I'm really honored to for finding myself here fasting for the day, getting a bit irritable because I'm a bit hungry, staring at this bit of water that's sitting on my desk. I'm just glad that I'm here, and I think it's cool that I really am honored to be here fasting and able to speak at an event like this and talking about some of the things that we've done. It's a privilege to be here. Thank you.
I think from our side, thank you. The privilege is actually for us to be able to host such amazing speakers, but also just all the conversations we've had today have actually been very insightful, very valuable. And I'm sure everyone that's listened in has probably taken a lot away from it as well, that we can probably tangibly incorporate in our lives. So a couple of minutes to go. Just want to say thank you to Shamil and thank you to Chef Naved for joining us today again. Inshallah, next year we can probably be live in a real tent, but we will go ahead today. So thank you to our speakers. It's been a great event, and thank you to the audience as well for joining us again, to Islam Channel and all the new guests on that side as well that have actually come up and supported us. So Islam Channel is our media partner, as is Arts Council UK, and without these two, this event wouldn't be possible. Also, just want to mention, don't forget to get your own exciting My Open Iftar pack. You can check out all the information online at ramadantentproject.com. It was a lot more information available there as well about how we're fighting world hunger with Islamic Relief at iruk.co/RTP. You can also support us to maintain activities such as this event here by donating, and your donations are vital to keeping Ramadan Tent Project going, and are hugely appreciated. And you can donate on www.launchgood.com/RTP2021. Okay, so that's a quick wrap up from me. There's been a lot of conversation about lots of different things today, and I think a couple of minutes left before his answer, we can just take a minute just to reflect. Thank you everyone for listening.
اللهم إني لك صمت وبك آمنت وعلى رزقك أفطرت ذهب الظمأ وابتلت العروق وثبت الأجر إن شاء الله.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة وابعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته إنك لا تخلف الميعاد.
So much for joining us today. Shamil, Chef Naved, it's been an absolute pleasure. And Chef Naved, please bring back the chili cheese toast. You know, that would be absolutely fantastic because it washes out very well with your amazing chai. But thank you for being generous enough as well with your opinions and, you know, participating in some sensitive topics today. We really loved having you, and thank you for sharing your opinion. And yes, and also keep the keema out for breakfast, Shabana's asking. Over to you, Adnan, for any final words.
For myself, same. Thank you to everyone that's joined us. Thank you to the new sponsors, old sponsors. Thank you to everyone that's come to really make this into the most integrated event that we can. My internet might be playing up a little bit, but I just want to say thank you to again to Shamil and to Chef Naved as well for joining us. We really enjoyed that. I definitely did as well. Hope to do this again next year. From myself and Shamil, knock that water down. Don't worry about it. We're not judging. Just straight down. That's everything from me.
Thank you, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Have a lovely evening, and we're looking forward to see you with our special guests tomorrow as well.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.